Welcome to Clearview Cyclones. For the next few minutes, we'll be describing a typical installation of our CV1800 dust collection system with filters. While your workshop installation might require slight modifications to the process presented here, the basic installation technique should be followed as noted in the detailed assembly manual included with your shipment. As with any electrical appliance, please consult a professional to ensure all connections meet local standards and regulations. Your Clearview Cyclone is the industry leader in dust collection and, with proper installation, will provide many years of trouble-free service. Thank you and welcome to our installation video. As we begin installing your Clearview Cyclone, remember to always refer to the assembly manual included with your unit. These instructions provide the detailed information necessary for a successful installation. When your order arrives, it will include 3 shipping boxes containing the components noted on the screen. If you selected the Win filter stack option with your order, please note that the filters are shipped directly from the manufacturer and will arrive separately. If there are any visible signs of damage, you must note the damage and report it to your carrier immediately. It's best to unpack your shipment as soon as possible and inspect the contents. Prior to beginning the actual installation, there are several component assembly operations that need to be completed. Since we will begin installing your CV1800 from its highest point, which is the ceiling mount, you should refer to the printed instructions labeled Build and Mount Wall Brackets. These instructions will provide details on building the ceiling hanger for your Clearview Cyclone. Once the hanger assembly has been fabricated, mount the wall brackets as outlined in the installation manual. After successfully installing the hanger assembly, locate the 5 horsepower Leeson motor box and carefully uncrate its contents. When uncrating the motor, take careful note of a key in the motor shaft, as this will be necessary to install the impeller. Remove any protective covering on the motor housing. Your next task will be to assemble the housing into which the completed motor assembly will reside. The motor mount includes 4 threaded rods and associated nuts and lock washers. It's important to note that the T-nuts are installed on the side of the motor mount assembly shown here. Make certain this is the orientation, as you will insert the threaded rods from the top of the housing. Be sure to refer to the detailed printed instructions on page 9 to ensure proper alignment of all threaded rods. Once the threaded rods are fully inserted, slide a washer, rubber hose shock mount, and additional washer onto each rod as demonstrated here. Be sure to leave the jam nuts loose as they will be tightened later. You're now ready to carefully slide the upper housing onto the threaded rods as shown here. Install the upper shock mounts as demonstrated. The final nut on each threaded rod should be left loose for now. These nuts will be used to level the Cyclone after it's hung, compressing the rubber grommets for a shock-proof fit. Carefully line up the housing holes and those on the motor mount. Then install the 4 half-inch machine motor bolts, being certain to include a washer and lock washer on each bolt. Tighten each bolt securely. Locate the Leeson motor, making sure to stand the motor on end as demonstrated. You're now ready to attach the motor to the housing as shown here. The completed motor and housing assembly should look like this. Please refer to the printed instruction on page 10 to ensure a proper fitting. The impeller can be assembled on the motor before or after installing the motor impeller unit on the wall bracket. In this video, we'll demonstrate assembly prior to installing the motor impeller unit on the wall bracket. You'll note that the taper lock is already attached to the impeller with the bolts threaded loosely in place. Remove the taper lock prior to installing the impeller. Slip the impeller over the motor shaft as shown here. Leave about 1/8 inch of clearance between the motor bolts and the back plate of the impeller. Place the taper lock on the shaft of the motor, lining up the keyhole of the shaft to the taper lock. Insert the key. Once the key has been completely inserted into the motor shaft, tighten the set screw against the key using the appropriate Allen wrench. Tighten the bolts individually, moving around in a circle until they're all tight. Be sure to retighten each bolt until the recommended torque for each bolt is 5 foot-pounds. You're now ready to hang the completed motor and housing assembly onto the L brackets as shown. Hanging the motor assembly will require 2 people as the completed housing weighs about 50 pounds. With the help of an assistant, slide the completed assembly onto the wall bracket as demonstrated here. You'll need to secure the motor assembly to the wall bracket before final operation. However, this is best done after completing the cyclone assembly, as you may need to adjust the motor housing to the cyclone during the final installation. The next stage of the installation will be to assemble the 90-degree transition parts. First, insert the plastic parts in the grooves to form the transition chute. Slip the chute into the transition bottom. Drill 4 small pilot holes as shown. Then attach the transition chute to the bottom using 4 screws from the small parts and connectors bag. The final transition assembly should look like the one shown here. Please note, we recommend placing a bead of DAP brand clear silicone caulk before assembling the transition to the blower housing. Now it's time to attach the transition to the blower housing. Loosen the front 4 bolts on the blower housing and open it gently, wide enough to slip the transition into the blower housing. Once the transition is inserted into the blower housing, tighten the bolts until snug. When the transition is positioned, drill 4 holes in the MDF and attach 4 bolts as shown. Then seal the transition to the blower housing using the clear silicone caulk. Be sure to caulk all the way around the housing to ensure the assembly is airtight. The sealing operation is very important. If the area is not sealed properly, dust may escape through any gaps in the seal. Next, prepare the body of the cyclone to be mounted with the blower housing. For this operation, use a trash can to keep the unit from tipping over as you attach the blower housing. You may use a packing blanket to protect the cyclone body during installation. You're now ready to attach the blower housing to the cyclone. Here again, you'll need an assistant to help keep the unit from tipping over while you attach the blower housing. Determine the desired orientation of the blower housing and the cyclone inlet chute. The blower discharge unit can be rotated and positioned in any direction to suit your particular location. Attach the blower housing to the top of the cyclone, as shown here. You're now ready to attach the cyclone and blower housing to the motor assembly, which has already been installed on the wall bracket. To ease the assembly of the cyclone, your assistant can help lift the unit to the motor assembly, or you may wish to position the cyclone assembly on top of a stepladder or other support structure to aid in the installation. Once the unit is on the motor housing, the cyclone will be stabilized and you can proceed to install the connector clips as shown here. Leave the connector clips loose enough to allow the cyclone to rotate to accommodate your final installation. You're now ready to install the intake chute to your cyclone. Rotate the cyclone so you can access the intake chute. Attach the intake chute as shown here. Once attached, seal with clear silicone. You can now rotate the cyclone and blower into the desired position and tighten the 6 clips on top of the blower housing. Carefully remove the filters from the shipping boxes. You'll note that there's a rubber seal on the top side of each filter. You'll need to remove the rubber seal from one of the filters only. Stack the filter with the remaining seal on top of the other filter. Clamp the 2 filters together to secure a tight fit. Drill holes on the corner of the filter brackets as shown here and assemble the filters. The filter assembly will look like the one pictured here. Your next task will be to install a cleanout box, which sits directly beneath the filter stack. This receptacle will be used to capture any material that falls from the filters. For our purposes here, we'll use the cleanout box available for purchase at our website. If you'd like to construct your own cleanout box, the assembly manual provides guidelines as illustrated on page 19. The next stage of your installation will be placing the filter stack assembly directly under the 90-degree transition as demonstrated here. You can now make the final connection between the filter stack and the transition by using 3 sheet metal screws. Use a clear silicone caulk to seal all seams. The final step of the assembly will be to modify and position the dust barrel under the main cyclone body. To modify the lid to your dust barrel, please see the detailed instructions provided in the assembly manual as seen on page 21. Install a rubber or foam weather strip to the underside of the lid, providing a tight seal. It's imperative the connection between the dust barrel and the cyclone is airtight. Position the dust barrel under the cyclone body and secure it using a 6-inch band clamp. Your Clearview cyclone is now ready for the final wiring and plug attachment. Consult a professional electrician to ensure installation meets all codes. We hope this presentation has been helpful and that you'll now enjoy a healthier, cleaner wood shop with your new Clearview cyclone.